Something happened this week that nobody in golf saw coming. Donald Trump, the sitting president of the United States, got personally involved in who gets to tee it up at the US Open. Not a tweet, not a passing comment. A direct demand involving Bryson DeChambeau, golf's most polarizing figure right now, and one of the sport's biggest stages. And the USGA is caught right in the middle. Now here's what makes this genuinely strange. Trump and DeChambeau aren't enemies. These two have been seen together publicly. So why is the president's name now attached to a conversation about banning him from Shinnecock Hills? Something doesn't add up. And that's exactly what we're getting into. Before we do, I personally think no political figure should have any say over who competes in a major. That's a line that once crossed changes golf forever. Do you agree? Drop it in the comments. I want to know where you stand. And if you're not subscribed yet, hit that button, because this story is still developing and you don't want to miss what comes next. Here's what we know so far, and it's messier than the headline suggests. To understand what Trump actually said and why it landed like a grenade inside golf's most powerful offices, you need to know what's happening underneath the surface right now. LIV Golf is dying, not struggling, not restructuring, dying. Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund, the group that pumped over $5 billion into the breakaway league, has confirmed it is pulling financial support after the 2026 season. The PIF chairman quietly resigned from the LIV board. No dramatic announcement, no farewell press conference, just gone. And when that news broke, every LIV contract suddenly became a ticking clock. DeChambeau, Jon Rahm, Cameron Smith, players who walked away from the PGA Tour with guaranteed money and zero regrets, are now staring at a 2026 deadline with nowhere confirmed to land. The league they bet their careers on is running out of runway fast. Here's where it gets uncomfortable for the tour, though. Those players didn't just leave quietly. DeChambeau was part of a group that filed a federal antitrust lawsuit against the tour in 2022. He didn't walk out the door, he slammed it, repeatedly, publicly. And now with LIV collapsing, the question everyone inside golf is whispering is whether the tour has to take him back, or whether they even want to. The tour created a returning member program specifically for this situation. DeChambeau was offered terms. So were Rahm and Cameron Smith. Every single one of them said no. Tour sources are now saying those terms likely won't be offered again. So DeChambeau is stuck. LIV is fading. The tour's door is closing. What nobody expected was who decided to kick that door wide open, and the demand that came with it. Trump's name entered this story from a place nobody predicted, not as a critic of DeChambeau, not as someone pushing the tour to hold its ground. Trump stepped in publicly from the Oval Office and said he wants all elite golfers competing against each other. His exact position. He wants Rory McIlroy playing Bryson DeChambeau. He wants Jon Rahm against Scottie Scheffler. He wants the split fixed. That sounds reasonable on the surface. Reunification, the best playing the best. Every golf fan's dream. Except Trump's involvement in this sport hasn't exactly been clean. Earlier this year at the Cadillac Championship, held at Trump National Doral, his own course, Secret Service agents physically blocked PGA Tour players from entering their own clubhouse. Airport-style security checkpoints were set up around the venue. Attendance dropped. The atmosphere felt less like a professional golf tournament and more like a government facility on lockdown. The tour said nothing publicly, because what exactly do you say when the President of the United States is creating operational chaos at an event on his own property? That silence tells you everything about the position golf's leadership finds itself in right now. So if Trump wants DeChambeau in the field at Shinnecock Hills, why is the word ban even in this conversation? That answer is darker than most people realize. Here's the part that gets buried under all the political noise. The USGA controls the US Open, not the PGA Tour. Two entirely separate organizations with different rulebooks, different agendas, and very different pressure points. Back in 2022, USGA Chief Executive Mike Wan was asked directly, could you see a scenario where LIV players get blocked from US Open entry? His answer was one word: yes. That door was opened 4 years ago. It was never fully closed. DeChambeau currently sits in the 2026 US Open field at Shinnecock Hills as a past champion, winning in 2020 and again in 2024. Under existing exemption rules, his spot is protected. The USGA hasn't moved against him. But protected and permanent are two very different things. Because here's what changed. DeChambeau rejected the tour's reinstatement terms that would have cost him tens of millions in forfeited bonuses, FedEx Cup money, and a delayed return clock. He looked at that offer and walked away. Publicly floated the idea of leaning into his YouTube channel full-time. 2. 7 million subscribers and growing, rather than bowing to penalties he considers deeply unfair. That posture, that refusal, combined with Trump's public pressure for reunification, created a collision that nobody inside the USGA or the tour was prepared to manage. What happened inside those closed-door meetings is what this entire story has been building toward, and it changes everything. Sources close to the situation confirm that internal discussions at the highest levels of golf's governing bodies included the question of player eligibility, specifically around LIV athletes whose reinstatement status remains unresolved. The ban conversation was real. It didn't come from nowhere. It was gaining momentum quietly, away from cameras and press conferences, inside rooms where golf's future gets decided without public input. For DeChambeau personally, the math was brutal. LIV ends in 2026. Tour reinstatement comes at a price he already refused to pay. His US Open exemption held for now, but exemptions get reviewed, rules get rewritten. Organizations under pressure rarely stay still. Golf's biggest YouTube personality, a two-time US Open champion, a man personally connected to the sitting president of the United States, sitting at the center of a war between two tours, two governing bodies, and a White House that decided professional golf was worth weighing in on directly. Every single institution involved was protecting something. And when organizations start protecting themselves, the athletes always end up paying the price. So here is exactly what happened. And this is what you came here for. Trump didn't just make a passing comment about golf reunification. According to sources close to the situation, the demand that reached golf's governing bodies was specific. DeChambeau should not face any eligibility barrier at the US Open based on his LIV status. The position coming from Trump's circle was direct, blocking a two-time US Open champion from competing at Shinnecock Hills while simultaneously pushing for a reunified tour would be a contradiction the White House was not willing to tolerate publicly. That pressure landed on the USGA at the worst possible moment. Already navigating internal conversations about LIV player eligibility, conversations when opened in 2022, the USGA faced an impossible choice. Any move toward exclusion would instantly become a political flashpoint. They wouldn't just be making a sporting decision. They would be publicly contradicting the President of the United States. So they didn't move. DeChambeau stays in the field. That is the real story behind this headline. Trump didn't demand a ban. He demanded the opposite, loudly enough that the ban conversation died before it ever became official policy. The title reflects the chaos of the moment, the real demand, and the very real political power that killed the ban before it went public. DeChambeau tees it up at Shinnecock Hills on June 18th, not because the USGA fully resolved its LIV eligibility questions, not because the PGA Tour dropped its penalties, but because the political weight sitting behind one player made the alternative impossible. Golf has never seen anything like this, and the precedent it sets is permanent. Here's my honest take. Trump may have kept DeChambeau in this US Open, but what he actually removed is the USGA's ability to ever make that call independently again. That's the real loss here. Do you think golf just crossed a line it can never uncross? Tell me in the comments. I genuinely want to know what you think. And subscribe right now, because DeChambeau is about to tee it up at Shinnecock Hills with all of this hanging over him, and we will be covering every moment of what happens next.